Okay. So the thing we need to guard against, or the thing we're trying to get through, is just this feeling of being on top of the legs. This feeling that I can actually, I'm getting through my legs. My spine is extending out of the sacrum and down the leg. Yeah, so the leg is pulling me down into it. So I'm reaching down. And then you can really feel how basically your lower back needs to flatten out. The min-meng needs to push back. If your bum is stuck out, then you're basically always sitting on your legs. So when you're sitting on the legs, basically you're just disconnected from the ground. So you're just a thinking mind, really. That's the dominant part of you. The mind, you know, what Blake in that quote called ratio. So ratio is just the rational mind, his word for the rational mind. Yeah, so we're using the legs just exactly like we would, you know, if you had to climb like a slope, a rock slope on a rope, you know, there's a rope hanging down and you can pick it up and clamber up like this, yeah. Then basically your legs are just behaving as your hands would when you were doing this, yeah. So my leg is bending to pull me forwards. Or like the monkey swinging through the trees, yeah. Yeah, like the monkey swinging through the tree. Just imagine how sensitive their hands have to be to make sure that what it is that they're gripping can hold them. It's the same with the feet. You know, we want the feet to really feel the ground. Yeah, so one of the curses of one of the things that's enabled the rational mind to take over basically is flat surfaces. Yeah, shoes, which basically insulate you electrically from the ground, and flat surfaces, which means you need to pay no attention to the ground beneath your feet. You can just glide over it. Yeah. So we just want to really feel it, feel the texture of the surface. Yeah. and how different it would be if it was carpet or tiles or parquet, wooden, or grass, so you'd like your feet to be as sensitive as any part of your body. The feet are big and really sensitive, full of feeling. So the feet are picking up messages all the time, not just from the surface of the ground, but from underneath it. And we just want to feel the shape of the leg, how the leg has to scoop under for you to come into it properly. It's not enough just to come on top of it like this. One has to, the leg has to come under, as though you're scooping some of the earth energy up into your dantian, like this, And each step does that. So as you're walking, you're not just grabbing the surface of the earth, you're scooping underneath it. And just feel how open it has to be across the sacrum for that to happen naturally. So it's roundness in the legs, So John always said that, when he got bored with Tai Chi, he admitted that sometimes he got bored with Tai Chi, he'd always come back to two of the principles, and that would invigorate his interest, and that was softness and roundness. And really, in a sense, they're like the same thing. So if you're not round, you can't be soft. And if you're not soft, you can't be round. Because roundness, the circularity, just means you're going in both directions. So I'm going down to come up, And so, it contains both things, which is basically just softness. It can receive and it can also give. They're just two sides of the same coin. And so the struggle really is just to get the lower back sorted. Really feel your spine coming down into the legs rather than settling atop them. So you're one body from the head to the toes. Okay. And now just riding horse. Now it should feel quite squat, almost like you're crouching underneath a low ceiling. So the difficulty is that what we're trying to do in Tai Chi just requires a completely different mind. So we don't realize it really, but the mind that we've been encouraged to cultivate from the moment we started taking our parents seriously is basically a self-centered mind, a mind that's saying, look at me, look at me. And that just means it's rearing up from the ground. So we want a mind that just wants to keep a low profile. It wants to get down. It doesn't want to be noticed. It doesn't need to be noticed. Okay, and now let's feel the dantian as the dantian, sacrum, minmeng, that whole sort of area as the center. Yeah. So normally if we're attending to the space in front, which we're normally doing, unless we're going for a walk and we're really looking into the distance, then we'll tend to pull this back a little bit to clear the space, if you like. So we just want this forward, so we're more like in the middle rather than behind. And then just turn and just feel the wheel of the waist, yeah? With the spine, the sort of minmeng spine in the center. So everything below the minmeng is your legs really, and everything above it is your torso. And that it should feel as though they're not separate, they're not two different things. There's a beautiful film about what they call a persistence hunter. So in Africa, the most primitive form of hunting is basically to sort of see your quarry, the thing you want to eat, and just chase it by foot. So it's this black guy who's just running after this antelope. And of course, the antelope can run a lot faster than he can, but he can run for longer. He's more persistent. So eventually the antelope just tires and can't even take another step, and that's when it meets its death, yeah? And so the guy's chasing the antelope, but of course the antelope gets far ahead, and so he has to track it because he can't see it anymore. And there's a point in the film where he loses the scent. And so he basically just closes his eyes, just jogs on the spot, and then just lets his legs take him. Yeah? So the decision is made by his legs, not by his thinking mind. So we'd like our legs to have a, something like that, like a life of their own. Yeah. And just feel the body, feel the heavy body, the inertia of the body. So in Buddhism, they talk about the brain mind and the body mind. Yeah. So we want to be with the body mind, not the brain mind. Yeah. But if the body mind, if we just bring it back, so the body mind is basically just with the body. And so the body is heavy, it has inertia, it has a reluctance to move. So the mind with the body is similarly like that. If that's the body mind is the one that doesn't assist and doesn't resist. Yeah. It doesn't fight, it's just in itself. And it's not ashamed of its heaviness or its sluggishness, because it just is. Yeah. So what we want is the body mind. Then we also want to feel the mind that moves the body. It's not the same, yeah? So if imagine someone's behind you and they're just moving you from leg to leg like this, yeah? And you're just trying your best not to help them and not to resist them. So they would feel you quite heavy, yeah? And they would have to use their root to move you, and otherwise they'd have to use force, yeah? So the mind that moves us, it's a bit like that person behind you. So feel your own body mind quiet and still inside, settled here. And then there's another part of your mind that is just moving you from leg to leg. And that mind needs to have a lift because something needs to happen to overcome the inertia of the body, the sinking of the body. Yeah? So when I'm pushing in this direction, I can still feel the heaviness settled here, but through that, something lifts up. Yeah? So we don't want to just be sort of agglomerated into one coarse thing that just does these actions. We want to sort of separate out into as many parts as possible. So, so if I want my body to move in that direction, I really have to press down with the foot. And then I have to be so gentle, because if I press down too heavily, it will bring my body up. I just want my body to slide in that direction. So I'm just watching the action. There's part of my mind that's watching and producing the action. And there's another part of my mind that's just still and just saying, oh, this is interesting. So the body mind, the mind in Dantian mind, is that's the detached, ruthless mind. We all know that, when you put mind in Dantian, as soon as you lose your concentration, it comes out of the Dantian and goes back into your head. So we need to cultivate the qualities that go with the Dantian mind. So quietness, and just this ability to just be ruthless, just be detached, completely detached, especially from your own feelings, from your own selfhood. And so you just need to be clear enough to realize that spirit is not a feeling. So when you have that sense of something rising, that's not just joy. It's not just you feeling good or you feeling light. There's a real substance that's actually coming up through you. It's like, when Castaneda always, Don Juan tells him, outside on the external, you should be all sweetness and light, but inside as cold as the Arctic wind. Yeah. And so it's that, there's a real coldness. It's just detached. It's just not, detached is different than unattached, yeah? Detached, there's something sort of bloody-minded about that. You have cut the connections, yeah? Yeah, so you want your movement to be so gentle that it doesn't disturb the quietness of the body-mind, yeah? But it does keep the body-mind awake, stops it slumbering. Okay, now we'd like the same thing when we do this, yeah? And so that body-mind is still quiet inside the Dantian. And there's another part of you that's responsible for the turning, yeah? And that's basically your legs, but it's like this active mind. The legs are really active. They want to be, yeah? So they're not just slaves that your rational mind tells what to do. They've got a real liveliness. Yeah. And just feel the turning coming from the action of the feet on the ground. They're both pushing, really. So this leg is pushing here, this leg is pushing here, and that's forcing a turn. And I have to keep the two legs independent a little bit. Otherwise, I've just locked them into a completely false stability, which has no equilibrium content. Yeah. And just feel the wheel that you're tracing with your hands, especially the back of it, the hand that disappears behind you. Really feel it. Feel how when it disappears out of your range of vision, it enters like a thickness. There's like the energy gets thicker. And it gets attracted towards the min-men. Just feel the mind. As soon as it wanders, you've basically switched into automatic pilot. So you're just repeating a habit. Okay, now let's bring it back. So just feel those energy tentacles from the sacrum that reaches down the leg. Yeah. Yeah, so the turning, it's not just an action, it's a release. Yeah, so when you turn and something can relax that couldn't relax when you were facing the front because it's just a bit too double weighted. Yeah. Okay. So now we've worked on this circle, the circle on the horizontal plane with your Dan Chen as the center. So now we want to work on the vertical circle. So like Leonardo's man, standing inside the circle, this inscribing circle. So again, on Leonardo's picture, the navel is the center. So for us, it's basically the same thing, just a little bit lower. And then we just want to just do this exercise, from the warm-ups, where we just feel this as the center. We normally take it with the heart as center, but just now really feel the Dan Chen. The Dan Chen should feel like a completely different center than the heart. The heart is full of feeling. which tends to become self-feeling, which tends to become self-pity. Yeah. Whereas the Dan Chen is really just ruthless and cold. It's of the earth, really. Yeah, so the Dan Chen, the lower Dan Chen is of the earth. The upper Dan Chen should be of the heavens, and the heart is of you. Yeah. The heart is like the perfect mix of the other two. Now, we've requisitioned the head, basically. So you're just tracing that circle that inscribes you. So it's going over, just about touching the top of the head, and then just under the feet. And again, just feeling the lower back. Don't let your bum stick out. So let the Min Meng squeeze backwards. Feel the pressure that the Dan Chen is being put under when you sort of crouch. And then just going the other way. You just have to be careful that when you come up, you don't let the elastic snap. So you don't come up into self, into head or heart. You stay with the Dan Chen. So, and then just slowly reduce the circles until it's just back with the Dan Chen. And then just back into riding horse. So just feel the spine just melting into the legs, yeah? And just feel that circle. It's almost like the circle should feel almost like it's shrinking, so you're getting squashed a little bit into a smaller circle. Yeah, so when you're doing like an exercise like this, basically you're just like flattening a ball. You're pressing the ball on top and making it squeeze out the sides. Okay, so just stay with that. You can think of it as like a sphere, like you're inside a balloon. And then let's just squat. So when you squat down, the balloon becomes really quite small. So we're just trying to crouch so that we're fitting inside the smallest ball possible. And just breathe, use the breath to help squeeze you open, especially the sacroiliacs and the back. So you can breathe into those areas to sort of expand them, and then as you breathe out, they'll just relax. So you're just using the elbows to press the knees apart. And just feeling the sacral area just really spreading open. And just shift from leg to leg slightly, just to keep it moving. And just feel the pressure that the dantian is under by this crouched posture. So it should, if anything, it should be a lot easier to feel the dantian, because it's like it's having to fight back a little bit from this pressure that your posture is putting it under. And then just placing the hands on the ground and just bring your weight over the arms until it feels that the arms are sort of on that vertical plane. Make sure the spine between the shoulder blades doesn't drop down. So the arms are pushing the spine upwards. So just rock forwards so you get almost all of the weight into the arms and just feel them having to do some work for a change. And then rock back. And then let's try again, but this time just use fists. So the fists on the ground. So just feel the pain as the fist has to take the body weight. And just stay with it. And then push back. My son Max showed me that And I did it with him, and I says, wow, it hurts the fists. And the withering look of disgust that he gave me really shut me up. Okay, now just coming up. Let's just come into riding horse again. Yeah, so just feel it. Feel, the head will be a little bit sort of strange because of being close to the ground. Okay, and now let's just stretch it. So just inclining forwards and just hanging down. Your legs completely straight so that the back of the leg, the hamstrings and the calves are being stretched. And just let the head hang. And just breathe, just stay with your long breathing. Yeah, so this one, it needs to be held for a good minute or two, just until the hamstrings have really stretched. And then we'll come up, but just be careful. Come up by going down first. So bend the knees. So go back into that squat really, and then just come up from there. So you're using the strength of the legs rather than the strength in the lower back to come up. Yeah. Okay. Now. Yeah, so that's the sort of stretch that, like dancers will do it lots of times in the day. They only do it once, but especially when you're being squatting and crouching. Okay, so now let's just do that exercise where we take the foot up, because that's great for this circle as well. So just feel the down chair, maybe have your hands on it, and just, so it's really just making sure that I don't straighten the supporting leg when I take the other foot off the ground. Yeah, so as you come into the leg, really feel yourself flowing through it into the foot rather than settling on top of it. It's just a different feeling. Yes, if you settle on top of the leg, you've basically created like a hardness, a forceful stillness. You want to feel that as though you're flowing through the leg. It's an energy flow that's taking you into this posture with one foot off the ground. And there's always one leg that will be just a little bit easier than the other. So just concentrate on the leg that finds it difficult. And again, the leg is round. As I sink into the leg, it's not just going down, it's scooping up. So it's almost like my sinking into this leg is uprooting this leg because it's just made a circle. And with the circle that I'm inside, okay, so let's bring it back. And again, just feeling the circle, like the circle is trying to shrink, so you're really being squashed into a smaller space. And again, you can just disappear into the legs, yeah? It's no big deal. So it will only really hurt when you set, you know, when it just becomes a bit too solid. If it's fluid, you know, there's no pain attached to that, but it just requires just a concentrating mind. Now let's just go backwards and forwards. And again, just feel, as I release the leg, that's when the leg naturally starts pulling me. So if I can release here, then the leg will just start bending. So I release, ooh. And so I want to feel the pulling of the leg being a relaxation. Something in me has let go. Ugh. I've let go here, like I've jettisoned the leg, and the leg is almost like fallen away, but then it starts bending, and that draws me back. And just feel it's all sort of ward off and yielding. And so a soft mind is basically one that's just energetic. It's like the front space is really reduced and you've just become all back. Yeah. Yeah, so another thing we want to try and get away from is this thing of associating an action in Tai Chi with a waist turn. Every action has 2 waist turns at least, not 1. So it's not me going backwards and forwards like this. Yeah. Because that would be sort of, mechanical and sort of just a bit boring. Yeah. So it's more like as I'm in the front foot, I've just come forwards here. So what I want to do, I want to make this push back natural. Yeah. So what I do, I just sink a bit more into the front foot. I load the spring and that throws me back. And then here I sink even more into the back leg. That loads the spring and pulls me forwards. So I'm turning a little bit this way. It's a bit like, in the form when we go into roll back. Yeah. There's a lot of places in the form where you turn a little bit more before you then go into the posture itself. So what we want is not for that to, because normally what people do, they just throw their arms out the way like this and it hasn't come from here at all. I want to relax. Whereas if I can just relax this whole area, then I will sink down and turn a little bit more. And I can use that to then throw me back into the back foot. And then I just turn this way and that throws me back. Yeah. So each movement is actually 2. First of all, I'm just yielding a little bit more here, and that throws me back. And then I'm yielding a little bit more here, and then that throws me back. Yeah. So it's just sort of softening the edges, really. It's especially important in the form. Otherwise, the form just becomes mechanical. Yeah. So it has to be a relaxation. Something in me just opens up and lets go, and that will turn me even further. John used to talk about it, but like with waving hands in the clouds, yeah? So something flows out of that. So that's actually really important, yeah? Because, for example, when you're sort of, so let's say from press, so from press, we would just go back, wouldn't we? And then we would come forwards for push, yeah? So what that's basically doing is just keeping the hips straight. So I'm sort of having to use force to sort of lock myself onto this plane, onto this line, and just moving backwards and forwards. But if instead of that, instead of locking it, I just sink and turn, then I can push back at the same time. So my sinking is actually turning me in this direction, but the leg pushing is actually turning me the other direction. So it gives the impression that I'm just staying straight. Yeah? And then the same here, I can be sinking this way, but at the same time pushing in order to keep myself straight. So I'm not locking myself, which is what the mind will always tend to do because it likes directions, it likes instructions. Yeah. And so just somehow just keeping it melty and soft. Yeah, so here I just melt. Because when you finish a posture, it will always be just a little bit hard, like a statue, and then I can just melt that in order to start the next bit. Yeah. I don't just turn back. I don't just turn the stiffness back. I transform the stiffness. Ooh. And it just, it's just the mind, it needs a mind that's just with softness. We've been practicing and trying to cultivate softness all these years. But it really has to be investigated. You have to realize that you could always be a little softer. Yeah. And so you have to really investigate these principles, especially with softness, because it's a little bit like knowledge. Hardness is like knowledge. As soon as you think you've got something, as soon as you know something, it hardens up, stops being fluid, and then it's no longer soft. So softness is really just being willing not to know, just being willing to be in that state of like fluid ignorance. Not being the expert. Remember one Sunday I was telling everyone something I'd read, trying to sound knowledgeable. And John just looked at me, he said, the last thing the world needs is another expert. So it's basically just beginner's mind, Beginner knows nothing. And so they're just open, they're open to whatever comes. And especially they're open to the event, to the spirit of the event. Whereas the expert knows everything. So what he especially knows is how to circumvent an event, how to destroy miracles, or make sure that miracles never happen. Okay, let's just try a little bit the other leg. Again, just start it off, get it backwards and forwards. It's like going back to the drawing board, as John would say. Yeah, and the softness is not just important for yielding, it's important for letting your energy out. Because if you can't release, then your energy just won't come out. Okay, a hand will come forwards, but nothing will come out of that hand. So 2 waist turns. First of all, I sink this way just to really connect with the foot. And then I've got some energy to give, so really connecting with the foot. And then, So this is the pushing foot. Okay, so let's just bring it back. Again, just this feeling of ward off in the legs. That will tend to stick the bum out, So a lot of the principles, all of the principles really work against each other, So they all need to be worked on to give you this overall picture, Yeah, this is the beauty of it, really. So it's not easy and it's not straightforward. Yeah. So when I've got this in, it will tend to pull my knees in. And when I get my knees out, it will tend to push my bum back. Yeah. So we need a balance of those two. And then just feel the dantian. So what we'd like is that every action, everything that we do, you know, everything we look at, everything we think, everything we engage, every decision we make, they all drive me into the dantian. They don't bring me out and weaken me, compromise me. Yeah. And that's just that detached mind. So you do things with that detached mind that in a sense couldn't sort of care less. It's especially evident when you look at things, yeah. So if you use the act of looking not as something that you do in order to see, but as something that you do to actually drive yourself into your dantian. It's a bit like pushing the wall. If you push the wall, okay, you're pushing in that direction, but you can settle into it and just feel how that push is actually driving the other end of your arm down into your dantian. Yeah. So everything that you do with your hands can either take you out of your root and into your hands, or it can drive you into the dantian and hence into your root. Yeah. So for that, you have to be detached. You mustn't be attached to the outcome, if you like, yeah. You don't have a vested interest. You're clear. It's what I call the gallows mind. Yeah. If you imagine, you know, you've been sentenced to be executed, so that walk from your prison cell to your gallows, yeah, how would you be able to do that with a sense of dignity rather than creating a spectacle of yourself? Yeah. And so just you'd have to be completely detached from everything, from life, yeah, with a mind that is so still and stony in your dantian. Okay, and now let's just bring it back to attention. And here just struggling not to sort of compromise the sacrum. It's still forwards and down. It's still using the slight angle of your thighs. So it's like, you know, in meditation, they say the chin should be in. And if it is, then you're looking down. And if you're standing, it's about 1.5 meters or 2 meters in front. But if you're sitting, it's like 1 meter in front. It's the same thing here. If your bum is in, then it's angling down to a point about 1 meter in front of you. And you just want the coccyx in particular to be really alive. Yeah? It's like a little grub, like a little worm that would like to sort of just get into the ground, just wants darkness. Yeah? So it's got a sort of little bit of life in it. Yeah? And that's mind. Yeah? It's that there's a liveliness in the mind that allows, and a liveliness in the coccyx. Yeah? So the parts of our body that have basically become vestiges since we've become relatively civilized, like the tail, little fingers, little toes, yeah? in order to get back into energy, you need to really enliven them, wake them up.